Welcome to the Liminal Observer Episode 4. If you didn't choose your mind, are you responsible?
It's a heavy question, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
And I want to start by asking you, the person listening right now, to just imagine something with us. Imagine putting two people in an fMRI machine and showing them both a really tragic, heart-wrenching video.
Like genuinely difficult footage to watch.
Exactly. Now, person A, their brain lights up like a Christmas tree. I mean, entire networks dedicated to empathy, distress, and compassion are just firing on all cylinders.
Which is exactly what you would expect from a typical brain.
Right. But then you look at the scan for brain B, and the emotional centers are just pitch black.
Completely dark.
Nothing is happening. The signal is entirely absent. So the question is, if the person with brain B goes out and commits a terrible crime, did they do it, or did their biology do it?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Because most of us walk around all day with this baseline assumption that we are entirely in the driver's seat of our lives.
We really do.
We wake up, we choose to be kind, or we choose to be petty, and we feel like the absolute authors of those moments.
We take total ownership of it, but that assumption completely shatters the moment you realize that two people can be born with profoundly structurally different brains.
It just completely upends the illusion of total control, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, when you introduce measurable physical differences in the brain's hardware, the concept of being the undisputed author of your actions gets incredibly messy.
Oh, absolutely. And just to be clear, we are looking at psychopathy today, not to sensationalize a condition, but because it serves as this ultimate philosophical test case.
Right. Psychopathy isn't just a bad mood. It isn't a fleeting lapse in moral judgment. It is a demonstrable biological difference in how the brain processes emotion.
Let's try to make this really tangible for everyone listening. Imagine being handed a computer at birth. It's the only computer you get, and you have to use it to navigate the rest of your entire life.
Okay, I like this.
But your computer was given an operating system that completely lacks the empathy software. Like, it wasn't uninstalled. It was just never on the hard drive to begin with.
The code is just missing.
Yeah. So is it logically sound to judge the user of that computer by the exact same manual as everyone else who came with, the premium empathy package preloaded?
Well, to really answer that, we have to look under the hood at the actual neurological hardware.
Okay, let's do it.
To understand your brain B example from earlier, we have to look at two specific structures, the amygdala and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex.
Or the VMPFC, right?
Exactly, the VMPFC. So the amygdala is our primitive threat detector and our emotional processor.
So when you see someone crying or in pain, your amygdala is what registers that distress.
Yes. It rings the alarm bell. And then the VMPFC is the translator. It takes that raw emotional data from the amygdala and turns it into a complex moral or social decision.
It's the part that creates the thought, they are sad, I should modify my behavior to help.
Right. So in the typical brain, there's this constant rapid-fire dialogue happening between those two regions.
Like a superhighway of information.
Literally a superhighway of white matter connecting them, yes. But in a brain associated with psychopathy, the structural integrity of that connection is severely compromised.
This highway is broken.
It's barely a dirt road. The amygdala often fails to register the distress in the first place. And even if it does, the signal never reaches the VMPFC to inform a moral choice.
Wow.
The person literally does not experience the physiological mechanism that we call empathy.
Wait, okay. If we are reducing morality down to the structural integrity of white matter tracks in the brain, are we basically saying choice doesn't actually exist?
Well,
like, are we just fleshy robots running a script written by our DNA?
You are hitting the very uncomfortable edge of modern determinism right there.
It is uncomfortable.
Because psychology and neuroscience tell us that personality, like the fundamental core of who you are, is essentially a cocktail dictated by genetics and early childhood environment.
Two things we have absolutely no control over.
Zero. Your genetics determine your baseline temperament, your neurochemistry, your starting brain structure. Then your early childhood environment violently shapes those structures through experience.
Right.
You had absolute zero say over your genetics and zero say over your early childhood.
So if those two factors dictate the parameters of what you can even feel in a given moment, the space for a truly independent, free choice looks, vanishingly narrow.
Extremely narrow.
Okay, let's bring this out of the MRI machine and into everyday life, because this applies to all of us, not just clinical cases.
Very true.
I want you, the person listening right now, to really think about your own life. Which parts of your personality did you actually sit down and choose?
It's a wild thing to think about.
It is. Like, did you choose your innate temperament? Were you just naturally a resilient kid or
Yeah.
naturally prone to anxiety?
Did you choose your irrational fears?
Right. Did you consciously decide, I think I'll be absolutely terrified of public speaking? No. Think about your natural talents or your capacity to focus.
We don't pick those from a menu.
Exactly.
Mm.
When you look closely, you realize you didn't custom order any of these fundamental building blocks. You just woke up with them.
And yet we have this habit of claiming aggressive ownership over our virtues, don't we?
Oh, absolutely.
We take all the credit for our patience, our work ethic, our kindness. We treat them as these grand moral victories.
Like we earned them.
Right. But if those virtues are largely the byproduct of a lucky genetic draw and, a highly regulated nervous system, courtesy of a stable childhood.
Which a lot of people don't get.
Exactly. It radically alters how we must view someone who was handed a completely different, volatile set of building blocks.
So neuroscience essentially proves the broken hardware argument. We are deeply limited by our biology.
Yes, the data is pretty undeniable there.
But as a society, we can't just let a broken operating system wreak havoc, right? I mean, we still have to hold people accountable when they cause harm.
Of course we do.
So how do we reconcile those two things? If they literally didn't have the biological capacity to choose otherwise, where does moral responsibility even begin?
That tension is exactly where modern Western philosophy often hits a brick wall.
Because we demand accountability, but we are realizing the foundation of free will is shaky at best.
Right. So to untangle this, we actually have to step outside the Western paradigm entirely. We have to look at frameworks that have spent thousands of years separating the mind from the self.
And we're talking about ancient Hindu traditions here.
Yes. And it's important to frame these not as dogmatic answers to memorize, but as rigorous psychological frameworks. They offer a completely different geometry for understanding consciousness.
Let's break those down because the West tends to treat the brain and the mind as the exact same thing. What is the alternative?
Well, we can examine 4 distinct perspectives, starting with Advaita Vedanta.
Okay, Advaita.
Advaita is a philosophy of non-dualism. It makes a hard, uncompromising distinction between the ego personality, which they call the Ahankara, and the true self, the Atman.
So the Ahankara is basically your biography.
Yes, it's your genetics, your trauma, your quirks, your neurochemistry. It is the operating system.
And the Atman.
The Atman is pure, unfiltered consciousness.
So Advaita would say that if you have a severed connection between your amygdala and your VMPFC, that is a severe glitch in the Ahankara, the ego machine.
Exactly.
But it doesn't touch the Atman. The pure consciousness is unaffected by the faulty wiring.
Precisely. The essence remains pristine. Then we have Samkhya, which approaches the problem a bit differently.
How so?
Samkhya is dualistic. It divides all of reality into 2 distinct categories. You have Purusha, which is pure passive consciousness, the silent observer. And then you have Prakriti, which is absolutely everything else.
Matter, energy, the physical world.
Yes, and crucially, the mind itself. In Samkhya, your thoughts, your moral calculations, your empathy or lack thereof, that is all Prakriti. It is just nature doing what nature does.
Okay, I actually have a way to visualize this one. Imagine sitting in a movie theater.
Okay, movie theater.
The mind Prakriti is the movie playing on the screen. It's full of drama. There's faulty programming. Maybe the audio track is completely missing, like in the case of Psychopathy.
That's a great way to put it.
But the true self-Purusha is just the quiet observer sitting in the seat watching the screen. The observer isn't the movie.
The observer is entirely distinct from the projection. The movie can be a tragedy, a horror film, or a romance, but the screen itself, the observer in the seat, isn't damaged by the images playing across it.
Wait, hold on. Let me stop you there. I love the movie theater analogy, but if the observer is completely untouched by the Psychopath's movie, doesn't that give the psychopath a philosophical free pass?
I see where you're going.
Right. Because if their true self is innocent and it's just nature doing its thing, how do we justify locking them up when they harm someone?
That is the trap of misapplying the philosophy. Samkhya says the observer is untouched. Yes, but Prakriti, the realm of nature, the mind, the movie, operates on strict, unrelenting laws of cause and effect.
Oh, I see.
If the character in the movie burns down the theater, the building still burns. The damage in the world of form is very real.
So we don't punish the observer, but we absolutely must constrain the malfunctioning mind.
Exactly, because it exists in the physical world where actions have physical consequences.
So we contain the hardware, even if we know the user is essentially trapped inside it.
Yes, beautifully said.
What about the other two frameworks?
We look next at yoga, and not the physical postures we think of in the West, but Patanjali's yoga, which is a rigorous science of the mind.
Right.
The foundational text defines yoga as chitta vritti nirodha, stilling the fluctuations of the mind. Yoga acknowledges that the mind is a chaotic, limited, and often broken instrument.
But it doesn't leave you stranded there.
No. It posits that through intense, focused discipline, you can actually rewire the instrument.
You know, that sounds remarkably like modern neuroplasticity, the idea that sustained practice can physically alter the brain's structure.
It is essentially the ancient blueprint for neuroplasticity. Yoga says you are not doomed to your baseline biology, though the effort required to change it is, immense.
And the final framework.
Finally, we have the Bhakti traditions. Bhakti is the path of devotion. It emphasizes that the human intellect is inherently flawed.
Which we've definitely established.
Right. If you rely on your cognitive moral compass, you will eventually fail because the hardware is glitchy. So Bhakti suggests bypassing the intellect entirely.
Just going around it.
Exactly. Directing whatever mind you have broken or not towards singular devotion and love.
So these four traditions approach the exact same problem from completely different angles. Advaita separates the self from the glitch.
Yes.
Samkhya watches the glitch. Yoga tries to fix the glitch. And Bhakti bypasses the glitch entirely.
That is a perfect summary.
Yeah.
And while they might disagree fiercely on the actual mechanics, collectively they offer this really profound realization.
It is.
A psychological disorder or a biological deficit is not a corruption of the soul. It is simply a limitation of the instrument.
Okay, but if the instrument is limited, we really have to talk about how these traditions handle consequence. I mean, if we are bringing in Hindu frameworks regarding cause, effect, and responsibility, we have to untangle karma.
We absolutely do. And first, we have to completely deconstruct the Western caricature of it.
Because in the West, we treat karma like a cosmic point system.
Oh, entirely. You cut someone off in traffic, your toaster breaks the next day. Karma.
Right. It's always framed as this system of punishment and reward overseen by some cosmic judge.
But if it isn't a judge keeping a ledger of our good and bad deeds, what is it mechanically?
Yeah, how does it actually work?
It is simply the physics of consciousness. It is neutral causality. Just as dropping an apple causes it to fall due to gravity, certain mental and physical actions produce specific ripples.
Cause and effect.
Pure cause and effect. And to apply this to our test case of psychopathy, we have to understand two distinct categories of karma: prarabdha karma and agami karma.
Let's define those, because I feel like this is where the rubber really meets the road.
Prarabdha karma is the karma you were born with. Think of it as an arrow that has already left the bow. It cannot be called back.
Okay.
It dictates the unchangeable conditions of your current existence, your genetics, the era you are born into, your early childhood environment, and the physical structure of your brain.
So if you are born with a severed VMPFC and lack the capacity for empathy, that profound neurological limitation is your prarabdha karma.
Exactly.
It is the terrain you were dropped into, the hand you were dealt.
Yes. Now, agami karma, on the other hand, is the future karma you are generating right now through your current choices. It's the new arrows you are placing into the bow.
But here's the friction. And I think this is the core of everything we've talked about today.
Yeah, lay it out.
If your prarabdha karma, your starting hardware, is a broken operating system, how can you be expected to generate good agami karma?
Right.
Let's use a domino analogy here.
Right.
Because karma is, in a way, just the dominoes falling.
Right. Yes, exactly.
But prarabdha karma dictates how your specific dominoes are spaced out, how heavy they are, and crucially, whether the table is slanted.
I love that. The slanted table.
So if someone's biological temperament means their table is tilted heavily toward violence or apathy, their dominoes are going to fall that way. Does the system account for a slanted table?
This is where we reach the intersection of causality and radical compassion.
Radical compassion.
Yes. Because if karma is just cause and effect, then being born with a severely slanted table is not a punishment for the current iteration of that person. It is simply the terrain that specific consciousness has to navigate.
Wow. Okay.
It means we don't have to hate the person who does harm due to a severe psychological deficit. We can view them with the understanding of Samkhya, a pure observer trapped watching a terrible, malfunctioning movie.
So we can have total, uncompromising compassion for the fact that they didn't choose their broken mind, while still stepping in to stop that mind from knocking over everyone else's dominoes.
That is the ultimate balance. Responsibility shifts completely away from moral retribution.
Right, it takes the anger out of it.
We stop saying, you are fundamentally evil, and we start saying, your actions are causing harm, and causality requires us to intervene.
It removes the vengeance from justice.
Exactly. It makes societal accountability about containment, safety, and rehabilitation, rather than seeking revenge against a soul that we mistakenly believed had perfect, unfettered freedom.
I feel like that completely changes how we look at every single interaction we have.
Yeah.
Not just the extreme cases like psychopathy, but, the person who snaps at us in traffic, or even our own bad habits.
It applies to all of it.
If I didn't choose my quirks and you didn't choose yours, grace becomes the only logical, rational response to human behavior.
We really spend so much energy trying to figure out if human beings are perfectly free. We desperately want to pin down the exact millimeter where biological determinism ends and free will begins.
We want a clean answer.
But exploring these intersections suggests that perhaps we are trying to solve the wrong mystery entirely.
So what is the actual mystery we should be looking at?
The wonder isn't in proving total freedom. The wonder is how profound limitation and genuine freedom manage to coexist within us at the exact same time.
It's a paradox.
It is. We are completely undeniably bound by our biology, our history, and our genetics. We are machines running programs, and yet there is this spark, this observer, this consciousness that can sit in the theater and witness it all happening.
As you go about your day, I want to leave you with a thought to turn over in your own mind. If consciousness is indeed separate from the mind, and if it's true that none of us chose the biological equipment we were handed at birth, what does it truly mean to become a better human being?
That is the question.
Are we meant to painstakingly fix and upgrade the mind we were given, or simply learn to observe its flaws with grace? Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings in all worlds be happy and free.